In the cold silence of space, a dying prisoner whispers his final wish, not for freedom, not for forgiveness, but for one last chance to see the dragon he once called family. Yet when the creature arrives, what unfolds is not the reunion he dreamed of, but a test of memory, trust, and the unbreakable bond between man and beast. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. In the silence of deep orbit, the prison known as Iron Veil drifted against the black canvas of space. It was a maximum security station, built to hold those the colonies no longer trusted. Inside one of its sterile medical bays lay Marcus Hale, prisoner number 482. He was not a notorious criminal. He was simply a man whose life had unraveled too quickly, leaving him here in the shadows. Marcus was dying. The medical drones had already confirmed what his failing body told him every time he tried to rise from his bed. The stellar radiation sickness had reached its final stage. His skin had grown pale, his muscles weak, and every breath felt heavier than the one before. According to the cold monitors above his bed, he had no more than 30 Earth days left. The cruel twist of fate was not lost on him. Radiation was the reason he was here, and radiation would also be the reason he would not leave alive. Years ago, he had made a living as a cargo pilot, moving supplies between distant colonies. It was honest work, though dangerous in the unpredictable storms of space. On one of those runs to a mining station orbiting a dying star, his future had shattered. Marcus had arrived early from a delivery, only to find his partner, Leona, cornered by a drunk overseer. The man's heavy cybernetic arms pressed against her throat. Marcus reacted without thinking. He grabbed a nearby plasma cutter and swung it wildly. His intention was only to protect her, to drive the overseer back, but technology and fate turned his actions fatal. The overseer's implants sparked. He stumbled and fell straight into the glowing beam. The end was instant. The courts did not see an act of protection. They saw excessive force, a worker dead, and a man responsible. Leona tried to visit during the first year, making the costly trips up to orbit when she could. But in time, her messages grew shorter, and finally, one day, she said goodbye for the last time. Marcus was left alone. His parents, once pioneers of the early colonies, had died years earlier from the same radiation sickness now eating away at him. The technology that might have saved them had come too late. He had no family, no partner, and no freedom. Yet there had been one bond that had carried him through the long emptiness of space before his arrest. It was not with another person. It was with a creature unlike any other. The creature's name was Solus, not the mythic dragons of ancient Earth stories, but a living experiment from a genetics corporation that engineered animals to survive harsh colonies. Solus was small when Marcus first found him, no larger than a shepherd dog. His scales were copper bronze, his wings slightly crooked, his flame sacs weak. To the company... Solus was a failure. They had planned to terminate him. But Marcus, on a supply run to their lab, saw the frightened creature in a cage and could not leave him. He smuggled Solus aboard his ship and made him his companion. For 3 years, man and dragon crossed the stars together. Solus could withstand changing atmospheres and cold, which made him the perfect partner for long hauls. More than that, he and Marcus had bonded in a way few beings ever experience. Solus would curl against his chest at night, and Marcus would talk to him during the endless hours between planets. In that small cabin of a cargo ship, the man and the dragon had built a world of their own. Now, lying weak in the medical bay, Marcus thought of those days. He thought of Solis's amber eyes, of the sound he made when he was happy, a strange trill that felt like laughter. And as Marcus's body grew weaker, only one thought remained strong enough to keep him alive. He wanted to see Solis again, not in dreams, not in fading memories, but in truth. Marcus knew he would not survive to leave Iron Vale. His sentence would end with his death. But if he could see his companion one final time, if he could tell him goodbye, then maybe the pain of his final days would be bearable. So he asked. He called over Inspector Draven, a tall Proxian officer with mirrored eyes and a calm voice. Draven had watched Marcus for years, seeing him as quiet and obedient, a man who kept to himself. Marcus's voice was weak, but his words carried weight. Inspector, I know I will not walk out of this place, but I beg you, find Solis. Let me see him once before I die. Draven's face did not move, but his long fingers flexed slightly, a sign of unease among his kind. He said in a low voice, requests of this nature are rare. They require the commander's approval. Marcus lowered his head, exhausted by even that short plea. He did not expect anything, yet somewhere inside, hope flickered faintly, like the dim star seen from the edge of space. That night, as the machines hummed and his body ached, Marcus imagined Solis's scales glowing under the cabin light of their old ship. He remembered the joy in his eyes, the warmth of his presence. It was this vision, fragile but powerful, that kept Marcus waiting for dawn, praying that the universe might grant him one final mercy. The days passed slowly in Iron Vale, each hour stretched out by the hum of the medical machines and the silence of space pressing in from every direction. Marcus Hale clung to his request, like a man stranded at sea holds to a piece of drifting wood. His body was weak, his time running short, but the thought of Solis gave him a reason to stay awake. Inspector Draven carried the request up the chain of command. Draven was a Proxian, tall and lean, with eyes that reflected light like mirrors. He spoke little, but he had seen Marcus's quiet conduct over the years. He had seen how the man avoided conflict, how he once stepped into a riot, not to escape, but to shield a wounded guard. When Marcus had been asked to help maintain the Old Earth literature database, he did the work with care. All of this weighed in Draven's mind as he walked the long corridor to present the request. Warden Calros sat in his office, surrounded by reports and glowing data screens. His indigo skin was marked with ceremonial scars of rank, each line telling of battles fought and authority earned. Draven bowed slightly and delivered Marcus's words. Calros was silent for a long time. Finally he said, "This prisoner has less than a month to live. To grant his wish costs us nothing but effort. And yet it may remind the others that mercy exists here, even in Iron Vale." He tapped a clawed finger against the desk. "Find the creature. If it still lives, bring it." The decision traveled back to Marcus like a wave of oxygen rushing into his failing lungs. When Draven entered the medical bay and spoke the words, Marcus's eyes widened. His heart, though weak, stirred with new life. For the first time in months, he smiled. But the path to reunion was not simple. After Marcus's arrest, Leona had tried to care for Solis, but the cost of food, care, and constant checkups for a bioengineered creature had been more than she could manage. Records showed that she eventually surrendered Solis to a reclamation center. From there, the dragon had been transferred again. This time to an organization called New Dawn, a sanctuary for abandoned creatures across the colonies. Tracing the trail was difficult. Draven himself followed the data through networks, messages, and scattered records. Finally, he discovered that Solis had been placed with a caretaker family on Europa, Jupiter's frozen moon. Contacting them took time, but eventually arrangements were made. The dragon would be transported under guard, then brought to the station. Marcus listened as Draven explained the long journey. Every word was a mixture of relief and fear. That Solus still lived, fear that too much time had passed. What if the bond had been broken? What if the dragon no longer remembered him? The medical drones warned Marcus that his condition was worsening. His strength was slipping faster now. If he wanted to meet Solus standing, not lying in bed, he would need help. Reluctantly, he agreed to a stimulant patch. The device would give him 6 hours of energy, but it would also shorten his remaining time. Marcus accepted the trade without hesitation. A few extra moments of life meant nothing if he could not spend them with Solus. The day of the meeting came. Guards moved Marcus from the medical bay to Visitation Chamber 3. The room was stark and cold, designed for lawyer consultations and monitored family visits. Its walls were clear panels of reinforced aluminum, bright lights shining down from above. 6 Proxian guards stood at attention, their posture rigid, their blue skin glowing faintly under the harsh lamps. Marcus wore his standard orange prison uniform, choosing it over the hospital gown. He wanted to face Solus as himself, not as a patient hooked to machines. The stimulant patch hummed faintly behind his ear, giving him enough strength to walk with steady steps. He sat in the single chair placed in the center of the room. Magnetic restraints clicked around his ankles, a reminder that even a dying man was still considered dangerous. Marcus did not resist. His eyes were fixed on the door. The air in the room felt charged, as though everyone inside knew that something rare was about to happen. The Proxian guard shifted slightly, their gills fluttering with quiet unease. Inspector Draven stood close by, his silver eyes calm but watchful. Marcus lowered his head, whispering to himself, "Just one chance. Let him remember me." The sound of hydraulics filled the chamber as the door slid open. A handler from New Dawn entered, carrying a specialized harness. Behind her stepped Solise. Marcus's breath caught. The dragon was larger now, his scales brighter, shimmering with bronze and green under the lights. His wings, though still imperfect, stretched wider than Marcus remembered. Solise's amber eyes scanned the room, alert and cautious. The guards tensed immediately. Solise growled low, the ridges along his spine rising. His flame sacs glowed faintly, not strong enough to ignite, but bright enough to warn. Marcus's heart raced. He had dreamed of this moment, but not like this. He had imagined a rush of recognition, a joyful reunion. Instead, he faced a creature bristling with distrust. The handler warned, "He has been nervous around strangers since his transfer. Do not move too quickly." Marcus's hands tightened around the chair. His voice trembled as he whispered, "Solise, it's me." The dragon's tail lashed against the floor, claws scraping faintly. His eyes fixed on Marcus, sharp and unreadable. Inside the chamber, silence grew heavy. The guards waited, ready to intervene. Draven's mirrored gaze flicked between prisoner and dragon. Marcus leaned forward slightly. "Remember me. We crossed the stars together. You were my family." But Solise did not come closer. Instead, he growled louder, pulling against the harness. Marcus's heart sank. He realized then the cruel truth. Solise believed him dead. Leona must have told the sanctuary that Marcus had died years ago. To Solise, the man before him was nothing but a stranger. The uncertainty of the reunion pressed down like gravity. Marcus felt tears sting his eyes, but he forced himself to breathe. This was only the beginning. He could not give up now. The chamber was filled with tension as Solise stood at the doorway, his scales gleaming like polished metal under the bright lights. His wings shifted uneasily, one slightly bent, the other stretching wide as if testing the space around him. The low growl that rose from his throat echoed off the reinforced walls, a warning sound that made even the Proxian guards stiffen. Marcus sat still in his chair, his eyes locked on the dragon he had once called family. This was the moment he had waited for, dreamed of through endless nights in his cell. Yet the reality struck him harder than the sickness eating his body. Solis did not recognize him. The handler tightened her grip on the harness, her voice calm but firm. "Do not approach. He is unsettled." Marcus's chest ached, but it was not the illness. It was the pain of distance. He had imagined Solis running to him, pressing close, remembering their bond. Instead, the creature bristled, his tail slashing against the floor in sharp movements, his eyes wide with suspicion. "Solis," Marcus whispered, his voice barely carrying across the sterile room. "It's me. It's Marcus. We used to travel the stars together." The dragon's nostrils flared as if testing the air, but the growl continued, deep and uncertain. The guards shifted, their long fingers twitching with instinct. One of them murmured to Inspector Draven, "He is unstable. Should we restrain him more tightly?" Draven raised a hand slightly. "Wait. Let the prisoner speak." Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, gathering what strength he had left. The stimulant patch behind his ear kept his body upright, but his soul felt heavy. When he looked again at Solis, he did not see an angry beast. He saw a frightened creature who believed his human had been lost long ago. His voice grew steadier as he spoke. "Do you remember the old cargo ship? I used to hide food for you, little puzzles to keep you busy during the long journeys. You would search every corner of the ship, growling in frustration when I made it too hard. Then you would trill with joy when you found the last piece. It was our game, wasn't it?" Solis shifted slightly, the ridges along his spine still raised but no longer as sharp. The handler noticed the change but said nothing. Marcus leaned forward carefully. "You saved me more times than I can count. Remember the frozen moon where we almost ran out of air? You caught that strange six-legged animal and brought it back proudly. I thought you wanted to eat it, but no, you just wanted to keep me alive. You always wanted me to live." The dragon's growl softened, replaced by a low rumble that sounded almost confused. His amber eyes blinked slowly, as though some memory flickered faintly behind them. But then the handler spoke quietly to Marcus, her tone heavy with truth. "When your partner surrendered him, she told us you had died." Solis grew in the belief that his human was gone. To him, you are a ghost from a past he has been forced to forget. Marcus's heart sank. The final piece of the puzzle was cruelly clear. Leona, unable to bear the cost or the weight of the past, had let Solis believe he was dead. For years, the dragon had lived with abandonment, learning to trust new hands, never expecting to see his first companion again. Marcus lowered his head. "So he looks at me and sees a ghost," he murmured. Even the Proxian guards, usually unmoved by human sorrow, shifted uncomfortably. Their gills fluttered with unease, reflecting a faint echo of empathy. Solis pulled harder at the harness, his wings spreading halfway in a defensive posture. The room filled with sharp sounds of claws scraping against the floor. The handler struggled to keep him steady. Marcus did not move. He knew that forcing closeness would only break the fragile line between them. Instead, he simply spoke into the space between them. "I am sorry, Solis. I never meant to leave you. I never meant for you to think I was gone." His words carried no demand, no command. They were simply an offering of truth. The dragon's growl faded, replaced by silence. Stared at Marcus with wide amber eyes, unblinking. Warden Kalros who had entered quietly to observe, finally spoke. His voice was calm, resonant with authority. These creatures form bonds that run deep. Breaking them can scar both sides. What we see here is not anger, but a wound left open for too long. Marcus raised his eyes to the warden, then back to Solis. Let him stay, please, just for a while. I do not need him to remember everything. I just need him here. Calros considered, then nodded. The handler eased the harness slightly, allowing Solis more room to move, though the guards remained alert. Marcus sat quietly, his body trembling with the effort of holding on to life. He spoke softly, telling stories of their journeys, reminding Solis of the days when the two of them had faced the vast emptiness of space together. He spoke of nights when the stars were their only company, and of mornings when Solis would nudge him awake, eager for the day's adventure. As his words flowed, the dragon's posture began to shift. The ridges along his spine lowered slightly. The tension in his wings eased. His tail no longer struck the ground in warning, but curled loosely behind him. And still, he did not approach. The fractured bond held, fragile and uncertain, balanced between memory and doubt. Marcus felt the ache of hope fighting against despair. Would Solis remember in time, or would this final reunion end with distance and silence? In that moment, Marcus understood the risk. This was not only a test of memory, it was a test of love that had endured years of separation, betrayal, and loss. The room grew quiet again, all eyes fixed on the space between man and dragon. In the stillness, one truth remained clear. Even the strongest bonds could break, but sometimes, with patience and faith, they could also be rebuilt. The chamber was silent, except for the faint hum of the lights above and the slow breaths of those who stood watching. Marcus Hale sat in the chair, his body weakened by radiation sickness, his spirit balanced between hope and despair. In front of him, Solis, the dragon companion he had once saved, stood tense and uncertain. The bond they once shared was cracked, almost lost to years of separation and the lie that Marcus had died. Marcus knew he had little time left. The stimulant patch behind his ear burned faintly, feeding his failing body with energy that would soon fade. But he refused to waste the moments he had. His voice, though soft, carried across the room with a weight that silence could not swallow. Solis, he said, his tone calm, steady, filled with memory. I found you when no one wanted you. They said you were flawed. Wings uneven, fire too weak. They wanted to end you. But I knew better. I saw your strength, your courage, your spirit. We flew together through storms of radiation and seas of stars. You were never broken. You were my family. The dragon's head tilted slightly, his amber eyes narrowing as though searching for something in Marcus's face. His nostrils flared again, pulling in the scent of the man before him. Marcus leaned forward just enough to whisper the sound he had not spoken in years. A low whistle, rising and falling in a gentle rhythm. It was the call he had once taught Solis, a signal that meant friend, safe, home. The sound hung in the chamber like a memory reborn. Solis froze. The growl in his throat faded into silence. His wings twitched, not in defense but in hesitation. His head lowered slightly, his eyes wide. Then in a voice that was neither growl nor roar, but something softer, he answered with a trill. It was the same sound he had once used in reply, the private language between them. A gasp filled the room. Even the Proxian guards, usually untouched by human emotion, felt the shift. Their gills fluttered rapidly as they witnessed recognition spark across the distance of years. Marcus's chest trembled. Tears welled in his tired eyes. "That's right," he whispered, voice breaking. "That's right, Solus. You remember." Slowly, cautiously, the dragon stepped forward. The handler held the harness, uncertain, but Draven raised his hand to stop her. "Let him choose," he said softly. Step by step, Solus closed the distance. His tail curled low, his body no longer bristling with warning. When he reached Marcus, he lowered his head and pressed his snout gently against the prisoner's chest. Marcus let out a sob that echoed in the chamber. His arms rose, weak but sure, wrapping around Solus's scaled neck. The dragon's wings folded forward in a trembling gesture, enclosing Marcus in an embrace. For a long moment, a reunion that words could never fully capture. The guards stood motionless. The handler lowered her eyes. Even Warden Calros, hardened by years of command, said quietly, "The bond endures." Marcus buried his face against Solis's scales. "I am sorry," he whispered. "Sorry I left you. Sorry for everything. But you found me again. We found each other." Solis made another trill, softer this time, a sound filled with trust. For Marcus, time seemed to stop, the pain in his body, the illness. The weight of years lost, all faded beneath the warmth of that moment. But when Solis pressed closer, something unexpected happened. A faint shimmer spread where the dragon touched his chest. The scales of Solis glowed softly, light pulsing in rhythm with Marcus's heartbeat. Draven's eyes widened. "The biofield," he murmured. Warden Calros stepped forward, his deep voice carrying authority and awe. "Some of these creatures carry regenerative fields. It is rare, unstable. But when the bond is strong, it can transfer to their companion. He is stabilizing him." The glow spread across Marcus's frail body, easing his trembling. The monitors that tracked his vitals shifted. The warning tones slowed, replaced by steadier signals. Marcus gasped softly, not in pain, but in surprise. The crushing fatigue lifted, just slightly. For the first time in months, he felt air fill his lungs without agony. "I thought I only had days," he whispered. Draven's mirrored eyes met his. "You may still, but now you may also have weeks, perhaps more. His bond with you is fighting the sickness." Marcus pressed his forehead to Solus's. "Then every extra moment is a gift." The chamber remained hushed, as though even the walls understood the miracle taking place within them. Marcus knew he would not live forever. The illness was too deep, too advanced. But the universe had given him something he had never expected. Time. Enough time to sit with Solus again. To share stories, to relive the journeys they had once made. The unique ending of his story was not release from prison, nor escape from death. It was something greater. It was the reminder that love, trust, and connection could outlast betrayal, distance, and even the cold silence of space. As the guards slowly filed out and the warden gave a final nod, Marcus remained in the embrace of his dragon. In Iron Vale, a place built to erase hope, a dying man and a forgotten creature had proven that hope could still live. And in the quiet that followed, as the stars drifted beyond the chamber walls, their bond shone brighter than any light in the endless dark.